save money, we do it. If we can make things simpler, we do it. If we can reduce our risk, we do it. Except when we don't. And sometimes we don't. And whether it's because of history or perceived difficulties or a desire to maintain autonomy within our own units, sometimes we don't. But we can. And today, our group is going to offer some suggestions for how we can save some money, how we can make things simpler, and how we can reduce risk as we discuss taming the wild, wild west of software management at Emory University. So our group was tasked with transforming the way that software is purchased at Emory. We were also asked to create some recommendations for how to track software purchases or to provide a business reason why those purchases should not be tracked. Now, currently, no uniform means for tracking software purchases exists at Emory University. Also, there's a lack of awareness of what's available and what you can do with what's available. And sometimes that creates some financial inefficiencies and makes us vulnerable to some risk. So our group, which consists of me, I'm Kenyatta Greer, I'm with the School of Law. We have Lori Cavagnaro, who's with the college, Joan Kowal, who's with Facilities Management. We have Randy Lucius, who's with HR, Diane Samuel with Research and Administration Services, and John Sauer, who's with the Department of Medicine. We're going to present to you our suggestion of how we can solve this problem. And our solution is the Emory Software Marketplace. Now, the Emory Software Marketplace is going to do three things. First, it's going to improve the user experience. And how's it going to do that? It's going to do that by streamlining access to software that's available, by increasing user knowledge, and by reducing user frustration. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to enhance resource stewardship. It'll do that by facilitating the creation of transparent and accurate data, by directing all purchases to low or no-cost options, and by consolidating technical support that'll provide us some cost savings there as well. The last thing that our Emory Software Marketplace is going to do is it's going to maintain compatibility and security. And it'll do that by making sure that software purchases align with existing Emory security standards, that they're compatible with existing Emory systems, and that they reduce risk. And you may think of that in terms of the customer, ROI, and risk. The solution, the Emory Software Marketplace. This thing is going to change the way that software is purchased at Emory. In the front, you've got a simple, intuitive design, but under the hood, you've got a powerhouse application that integrates with accounting to take software purchases from frustration to ease. Now, we have a great idea, but other institutions have done something similar before. When we were doing our research, we found that a lot of schools have the same problems that we have with tracking these purchases, but a couple of them are doing it right. And we benchmarked ourselves against Duke and University of Virginia, who we found saw marked improvement in user experience, which was their primary driver. So today, as we give you our solution, we're going to give you our recommended approach, talk about the user experience. We'll talk about resource stewardship, compatibility, and security. We'll provide our summary and recommendations, and then we'll open up the floor to your questions. Now, you see that big list. When we did our research, we talked to a lot of skilled and knowledgeable people, internally and externally. And we want to thank all of those people for taking the time out to talk to us. And we want to especially thank our executive sponsor, Carol Kissel. Now, what we learned when we talked to these people is that this problem spans numerous units, particularly procurement and IT. When we first approached this project, we were considering all software, but we quickly learned that there's more than one type of software. And very basically, it can be divided into three separate tiers. The first tier, which is packaged software, includes things like Adobe and Office and Qualtrics, things that you can download and install on your desktop to use in your everyday operations. Then you have frameworks and platforms, and those are things like Salesforce that require you to download, but get some help from your IT professional to get it really working the way you need it to work. And then there's infrastructure as a service, and those are things like PeopleSoft and Compass, and those are cloud solutions. These are things that get more complex. What we learned is that there is already an IT governance process in place that really takes care of those top two tier software. But when you get to packaged software, where people can take their P cards and they can download and purchase whatever they need or want for their computers, that's where the wild, wild west really exists at Emory University. And that's why we chose to focus our Emory Software Marketplace on packaged software. So we hope to show you how our Emory Software Marketplace will be a single place to go that will aggregate most software purchases, note negotiated cost savings right on the screen so that the user can see how much they can save by using what Emory offers, autofill appropriate accounting code so the user doesn't have to guess where it fits. It'll encourage the use of software that has already been vetted and approved by our IT departments. It will allow for consolidation of existing licenses that live out there. And then finally, we'll provide software descriptions and allow the user to input ratings. And that will greatly improve the user experience. So here to talk more about the user experience is my colleague, Lori.
So I'd like to talk about improving the user experience, and I'd like to begin with a note on the user. At Emory, we have 3 very large constituencies in our community: faculty, staff, and students. And within these large groups, there's a great deal of variety of interests, needs, technical savvy. We understand that this is a more complicated body, but for the sake of clarity, we will refer to the user in this section. So let's say a user wants to purchase some software. Let's say the user wants Adobe Photoshop, and I don't know, let's call the user Lori. So Lori begins by doing a Google search of Emory software. The first result of that search is the Emory Software Resources page, and the first line of that is the Emory Software Distribution page. It's a page that has a pull-down menu that you can complete. Here I am completing it because I want Adobe. I've selected an Adobe All Products. I've indicated that I'm university faculty and staff and that it will be used on a university computer. And then when I select the vendor, I'm led to a page that explains some guidelines about working with CDWG, which is the vendor that provides reduced cost software for Emory. Here you can see there's a specific example about if I want Adobe, I'm going to purchase through Emory Express. I select Emory Express, there we go, which redirects me to Finance. Then I find Emory Express and I click it, and then I log in, and if I'm an authorized Emory Express user, I have arrived at the CDWG catalog. So that is a fairly complicated path to achieve my purchase, which is a fairly ordinary purchase. Now that's only one of many paths through the software distribution page because it varies according to software choice, user status. The software distribution page is only one of the many ways that I might begin my software journey. If I remember, next time maybe I'll begin at Emory Express, or I might find Emory's Software Express page, which has free software available for download. I might decide to talk to my unit IT professional. Depending on the unit that I reside in and our particular policies on administrative rights for our computers, this may be required. Or I could go the path of least resistance, the green button down at the bottom, purchase directly from the vendor with my P card. Done and done. So this scenario is very complicated. There are many paths, they overlap, and it's confusing and difficult to navigate. We recommend streamlining access from multiple paths to one portal, the Emory Software Marketplace. Now, in the example I just gave you, we assumed that I knew what I needed. If you'll recall, I said I wanted Adobe Photoshop. But what if I know what I need to do and I don't know the tool that I need to achieve the job that I want to complete? For example, if I want to conduct a survey and I return to the Emory Software Distribution page, the first thing I get is a pull-down menu with a list of product names. I don't know from looking at these which one might be an appropriate tool for me. Instead, we suggest that the marketplace be searchable also by software category, not just product name. And then once you click on the options within each category, you would see something like the mock-up that you see now for Qualtrics that lists the software name, a brief description, and also a user rating. Between the brief description and the user rating, I can begin to make an informed choice about what is the right tool for me to get this job done. We also believe that the software marketplace could play a role in reducing user frustration, not just in navigating to get the software, but once you are actually using the software. Because all the software on the software marketplace would be Emory supported. During the course of this project, we heard many stories of software use and abuse at Emory. And I'd like to share one of those with you now. We have a colleague, we'll call him Bob. Bob was a department manager who relied on the use of QuickBooks to stay on top of his budget. This was working really well for Bob until it wasn't. And because QuickBooks was unsupported, when his computer crashed, it ultimately led to a re-imaging of his computer. Bob was very frustrated. So much for the mastery of his budget. We had lost time, lost effort, and a lot of indigestion. The software marketplace can enhance the user experience by including a clear statement of the benefits of using Emory-supported software and the drawbacks or consequences of not. The sad story of Bob also raises questions about resource stewardship and compliance that my colleagues John and Diane will take up with you in a moment. But first, I'd like to sum up the benefits to the user for the software marketplace. It would create a consolidated list of software that is available at Emory. It would be accessible by category as well as name. It would include a description of key features and limitations. It would have a rating system that would provide more information and also possibly develop a community of users. And it would, we hope, reduce user frustration. And with that, I will turn the floor over to John, who will talk to you about resource stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. So Lori's walked you through the maze that is the current user experience and how the Emory Software Marketplace will make it better. It's interesting, though, this did not, as Kenyatta mentioned, this was not our initial charge, was to address the user experience. It's more resource stewardship and the costs of software and how we track it, which I'll walk through with you now. When we started this project, we started looking at data, and we were provided with an initial data set from the EFN Systems Subcommittee, which was looking at a couple of years of software spend, about $1 million in spend. We quickly realized that if we were going to size and scope software spending, we needed more than just that sample. So we made a couple requests, as you can see on the graphic here. We requested the data set being used by Ernst & Young as part of the larger procurement project at the university, and then also P-card data from JP Morgan Chase. Quickly, we realized a lot of issues with the data. As the graphic shows, there was some overlap that we noticed, but based on the sizing, the numbers on the circles, $16 million in software spend, talking with some of the leadership in this room, we knew that was an underestimate of what we were dealing with. We also knew that the way that the data was being recorded was inconsistent. We had open field descriptions of what you were buying, and so it was oftentimes indecipherable what people purchased. Kenyatta mentioned the accounting codes issue. People were assigning software purchases to a multitude of different accounting codes. Some were putting it in supplies, some were putting it in computer services, some were putting in other operating expenses. It made it very difficult to look through the data to understand what was going on, what was being purchased. So again, Emory lacks a quick, reliable, and comprehensive report or way to report on data on software spend and use. Lori talked about the multiple entry points into purchasing software that contributes to this problem. But as I mentioned, individual units are assigning their own accounting codes, which makes it even more challenging to track. When talking to the consultants that we interviewed, we discussed that this would be a year-long project to really dive into each individual unit if we really wanted to understand what the total software spend is at Emory. The consultants were more than willing to help us do that. But we didn't have any money to give to them. So, as far as the purchasing behavior, on this the slide shows a few examples of some software that we saw in the data, and you see the ranges in prices. Some of this can be explained by having a single seat versus multi-seat license. But in some cases, when we were able to decipher the data, we knew that with single seat licenses, we were paying sometimes hundreds of dollars of differences between whether you used a P card or whether you purchased through Emory Express. So a lot of variation. Going back to that example, Adobe products, when we could figure out what they were, we noticed that they were being purchased on Emory Express at the discount, but we saw the same software being bought with a P card directly from the vendor. Hundreds of dollars of difference. We've all become in tune to this within our units, and I know I've done it in my unit. Whenever I see software purchases now on a P card, I have to approve. And one example we've found in one of our colleagues had purchased an Adobe product for $400 directly from the vendor. We then searched on Emory Express, found the same product for $20. Hundreds of dollars. So at an individual unit, in my small units within the Department of Medicine, that can make a big difference. And if we extrapolate that over the entire university, we definitely have an opportunity here. So all the sites that Lori just talked about, if you go to Software Express, it's a list of everything that we have an enterprise license for. It's free to download if you know it's there. Software Distribution Center is where she started in the little maze she took you on there. If you go to Software Distribution Center, it could direct you back to Software Express to get it for free, depending on what you want. It could also take you to Emory Express and then on to CDWG to make your discounted purchase. If you know about it, you know about Emory Express, which most people do, but if you know you can buy software there, you can go there and get your discounted rate. But say you don't know about any of them. And honestly, before this project, none of us knew about Software Express. None of us knew about the Software Distribution Center. We knew about Emory Express. We weren't really sure you could buy software there. I think a lot of people at Emory don't know that as well. And so they go directly to the vendor when they want to buy things. We want to take everything, again, from a maze into a funnel. And so, as you can see here, we've got Software Distribution Center, purchases, Software Express, CDWG, everything coming through this funnel. You see the vendor direct on there, just a qualifier. We're not going to be able to get everything into the marketplace. There are still going to be some software that we need to purchase directly from the vendor. It's impossible for the Emory software marketplace to cover it all. Of course, we would hope that if you're buying things directly from the vendor, that you're working with your local IT professionals to make sure that it is safe and fits the compliance and compatibility that Diane will walk through in a minute. So the Emory Software Marketplace will provide more accurate and transparent data on spend and use. We've got one entry point now instead of multiple entry points. We have one entry point for most of our software purchases. That will allow us to get better data. We're going to be able to run reports, understand what we're spending, identify opportunities for combining licenses, save costs, save money. Integration with the accounting system. So when you make a purchase on the software marketplace, it automatically codes it to the right accounting code. So when we get the data reports, we don't have to filter through 5, sometimes 6 different accounting codes to know what we're spending. From the user point of view, we're going to be directing people to the free or reduced price software. We're going to promote this thing. People are going to know about it. They're going to know if I go to the software marketplace, I'm going to get something free, I'm going to get it cheaper than I can get it out on the market, because I'm going to get access to the negotiated rates, or I'm going to get it for free. I'm also not going to pay sales tax. We're paying a lot of sales tax when we're using P cards and corporate cards to purchase software. And lastly, consolidation of site support. We're at least running 2 sites right now. We've got the Software Express and the Software Distribution Center. Consolidate that down to 1. As far as Emory Express, well, that's not going away. We still need that for some other things. But the CDWG piece may need some work. Honestly, in the last 2 weeks, as we've been working on this project, I've tried to get into CDWG to look for software, and it times out, gives me a blank screen. So I figure we need some work and consolidation with that as well. So we've shown that the Emory Software Marketplace makes things easier. It also can save money, save costs. How much? I'll let Randy tell you that in a few minutes. But before that, while you're still on the edge of your seats, I'll I'll turn things over to Diane to talk through the compatibility and security benefits of the software marketplace.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about why it's so important to maintain compatibility and security. Take a look at these metrics. This is a monthly metrics from 2016. These are the things our folks in IT take care of on a monthly basis to protect the university's information. I think that's key. So the university goes to a great extent to protect our information until we don't. The software marketplace will nicely align with our IT security policy. It will, it's going to align with the various areas that need information protected. That's financial, human resource, research. Those are the key areas where the information in those areas is both sensitive and confidential. So as we all know, with this day and age, there's many ways to download software. There's desktops, there's phones, there's all different ways, which raises the level of complexity, right? People have it at their fingertips. So my contention here is that, you know, if we have the Emory Software Marketplace, we'll be able to address these areas. It's important that we have software that talks to our systems. It's important that the software can be supported. It's important that the software can be updated, because that's how we know that we have the most current version of that software. And there we are. We'll make our mascot very happy. Again, the three main areas of sensitive and critical information that we need to protect. Let me tell you a story about a researcher. Thought he was doing the university a great job. A vendor approached him, had free software for data storage. He started. And then found out, oh, this is a startup company. Startup companies don't tend to get to the point, or they haven't gotten to the point, where they're concerned about security issues. So while the researcher really believed he was doing a good thing, and he was, there were certain things that needed to be in place, and they weren't. So we're trying to tame the wild, wild west. We're going to circle the wagons. So here's our Emory Marketplace. These are the types of software that are going to be available in that marketplace. And this can help areas like, say for example, the Institutional Review Board. They have applications all the time for human subject research. Wouldn't it be nice if they could refer these researchers to this marketplace? They can't force them to use it, but it sure would be a nice resource. So what are the key takeaways? We want to safeguard our information. We want it compatible. And we want to make sure we're compliant. So now that we've gone over the three legs of our argument, I'm going to turn it over to Randy, who's going to sum it up for you and talk more about the ROI.
Thank you, Diane. So, as you heard from my colleagues, this solution, the Emory Software Marketplace, is going to address three very important needs. One is going to improve the user experience. It's going to be easier to find the software you need in a timely fashion and get information that you need to make an informed decision. Secondly, it's going to enhance stewardship of our resources. It's simply going to help operationally us run more efficiently and to better manage our money. Finally, very important, it's going to help enhance compatibility with existing Emory systems and security and mitigate risk. Now, we need this because uniform management of packaged software today really, in my opinion, in our opinion, it just doesn't exist. The current paths to purchase software are complicated and difficult to navigate. Data regarding software purchases is lacking in specificity and standardization right now. It is hard to make good decisions without good data. And the non-standardized software purchases may expose Emory to security risks. It's just impossible to accurately determine our software usage, how much we're spending, our support needs for all this software. Right, Dana? And the threats to our security, our IT security. So, in our opinion, it's time for a change. Standardizing the management of software purchasing will not undermine the freedoms of our academic community. We value the decentralized nature of our university, but there are times when centralization does have its place. I experience this tension all the time working in Central, but we feel like in this case, more centralization would be helpful. Centralization at times has its place. So the Emory Software Marketplace, it will help build a community. Emory prides itself on being a community. This is another avenue for building that sense of community. It's going to improve the user experience, the stewardship of resources, and compatibility and security. You're going to understand from other people that are using this what software worked for them, what software didn't work so well. It is fed by our community and just enhances that overall sense of community that we value so much. Now, the cost has been alluded to several times. In our opinion, is minimal. Precedent from peer institutions as well, and general best business practices, as the outside consultants told us, would support adaptation of the Emory Software Marketplace. So, you want to see the numbers, right? I know you've been waiting for this. We looked at, we got some estimates from people in communications in public affairs, and looked at other estimates and estimated support needs from IT, because this is going to require ongoing support from IT. We understand this is not just a website, it's really an application. But we think communications could do a great job with the storefront of this, and then IT with everything behind it to make it a smooth, well-running machine. So the startup costs we estimate, as you see up there, between $130,000 and $184,000, with ongoing maintenance between $35,000 to $46,000 roughly. Based on the data sources we have of packaged software only, spend, it's $1.5 million based on what we saw. And it could be even more. It took a max of up to $3 million. Based on savings that we've seen from outside research, in particular the Gartner Group, very reputable organization, we expect that we could see savings from 15% to 25% just in purchasing, in spend alone. And we took a very conservative estimate of the labor that would be needed to support this, the savings that could be realized from that of just 5 to 10%. Frankly, that's too conservative. But based on the consultants we talked to, they said you typically would see 2 to 3 times savings in labor costs compared to spend. But nevertheless, if you look at the min and the max, and we consider maximum spend with minimum savings, we would expect to see a 1-year ROI of greater than 30%. That's our estimation. So we recommend that Emory must adopt some level of software procurement standardization. We have a solution, the software marketplace. It'll improve all these important areas that we've identified that was well beyond our initial charge and produce a positive 1-year ROI. So let's get started, shall we? There's a few additional things we need to consider. 1, beta testing. This is going to require a lot of testing. We considered the idea of a pilot. However, once you build this, it's ready to go for the whole university. So we recommend instead extensive beta testing to make sure this will work before it's released. We need to also make sure that procurement policies, first of all, that it supports existing procurement policies, and if there are additional policies that need to be put in place, that those also be reviewed. Clearly, we're going to need assistance from IT to make sure this runs effectively as we would like it to. as our our benchmarks have been able to make it happen. And of course, we've got to have a change management strategy. You know I'm going to put in a plug for change management strategy. We have got to have a plan in place to ensure this is communicated properly and that will maximize the implementation, because this is a change. It is a change. It's an important change. But we think with all these elements above, it could be very successfully adopted. So, with that, I would like to turn it over to Joan for Q&A.
Great. Well, I thought maybe I'd start with a question to you guys. So will you invest? Is this Shark Tank? Do I have any checkbooks out there? ROI of greater than 30%. So hopefully, you know, even on the conservative side, we have some takers. I know I questioned Carol and she nodded yes. So I'm like, the rest of you are just other investors. You know, I've got my primary one, you know, maybe she'll share a portion of it with you. But really, we'd like to open up to questions. I know we haven't been able to address everything, but wanted to get the idea out there.